Okay, so let's jump into a conversation. Competency for asking powerful coaching questions. So let's just take a moment to think about what even the wording of that competency means. What does it mean to each of us?
You want to provide questions that ignite new thinking, different perspectives. That's what powerful means to me,
Mm.
rather than it being a absolute killer question that's gonna just be like, right, I've said it, and that's my like a mic drop moment. It's not that. It's that sort of, yeah, how can I frame this in a way that really gets you to think about something in a way that you never have?
Yeah.
It's the whenever I look at this competency, I know it's the one that most delegates think, "Oh, I'm not good at this." You get a lot of the sad faces on the competency rating, and it's the powerful bit, powerful coaching, because we can all ask questions. Often we're asking questions for our own curiosity, aren't we? Our own interest. And when we talk about this competency, is this question in the service of the client?
Yeah.
So that can be a powerful part of it. I'm asking a question that's really going to help the client move forward with their thinking. So I suppose that's the first thing. Is it's always a bit of a, oh, I'm no good at asking questions, and we link it with listening, as you know. We've talked about that. We talked about that in the video around listening. Is we link it with listening purposefully, because we know if you get your listening right, the questions will come.
And it's weighted more towards listening. It's
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So that listening that we encourage in our delegates is to ensure that you get to a point where you're asking relevant questions, appropriate questions. But it's also that balance, I think, between light touch.
Yeah.
It's not about question, question,
Yeah,
question,
yeah.
question,
Oh,
question.
you're right. So I think there is definitely, and you see, I was definitely guilty of this, is that it becomes I've asked a question, I've asked a question, keep going. And actually, what you're not doing is using all the competencies, and questioning is just part of
Yeah.
part of being a coach. It's not the thing. Yeah. And I think that's definitely something that as the competencies start to build together, becomes clearer that it's part of it, not the thing. But when I think of the word powerful as well, I think it is about, you know, not being so there's a curiosity in your questioning, but not about what's the story, who are we talking about, what sort of players here. So it's kind of putting all that questioning that we might have in normal day-to-day interactions around I just want to know more, to right, what's the question I'm going to ask that's going to open it up for you? And in a way, I think it can feel really powerful when someone is a bit stumped. Yeah, so I kind of know that I'm like, okay, now we're getting somewhere. When somebody's like, uh, yeah, and I actually always contract on that and say, I hope that I ask you questions that you don't know the answer to, that you're not immediately like, okay, this is, I've got my rehearsed answer. It's like actually it stopped and made you think. And that also you don't have, maybe you can just keep asking the same question. So, we all love the and what else?
Yeah.
And
Tell me
yeah,
more.
tell
Yeah,
me
yeah, yeah.
more, because it's like we never give people the opportunity to do that, do we? It's like we're all so used to, right, you've asked me a question, here's my answer, and then move on.
That's moving.
Yeah,
but it's that my first answer may not be my last answer.
Yeah.
exactly. And it might not be the truthful I'm saying. It's like this is the best answer I did. That's not what I really think.
I can remember doing my coach training and sitting in a room with other practicing coaches, and there being almost a hierarchy in the room of learners based on the questions that they would ask. And that then, for me anyway, put an immense amount of pressure on. I need to ask the best, or it's not as good as the question that the person over there asked. And I think we see this a lot in CWC, is people feeling that they need to ask the best question, the most insightful question, not just the question that feels right for the moment. So there's something about how we even talk about questioning. Do we ratio, as you say, against all the other competencies? is it talked about more or less than an element in every single competency?
Yeah.
There's a pressure there that we need to take away to allow us to listen, and then by listening, the questions come.
But there's also, and I know I did this. It's helpful to expose yourself to different types of questions, because there is a tendency sometimes to fall into the same kinds of questioning if you're not listening well. But also this is the kind of person I am, and these are the kinds of questions I ask. So I had my list of 100 powerful coaching questions when I started. Yeah, obviously didn't ever use them, but they were there. So it's a kind of reassurance. But the book that we provide, the EMCC Powerful Questions book, is a really helpful stimulus. And even if you just read it and think, oh, that's an interesting question, or oh, that's a question I've never asked myself, as a resource, you may not use it in your coaching sessions. And we talk in the program about how you could use it, but even just as stimulus and thinking about wording things differently or a slightly different approach, I think that is it is quite helpful to read up on questions, even if you never actually in the moment are obviously looking at the questions, you're focusing on the listening.
And it's that stuckness, isn't it, that you talked about, Lorna, that sometimes you can just sense a client is really stuck in something. And, you've got some choices as a coach. You can either sit in it with them and also get stuck in the mud with them by asking them lots of questions. Did they say that? Oh, what did they mean? Oh, really guessing it. Or you can think about that whole solution focused piece around it, because that's your role. How do you help your client move forward?
Yes.
So there's that sort of really lovely balance between listening to what they need to share, what needs to be said, what needs to be aired, and then choosing that right moment to think about, now is the time let's ask a question that's going to move you forwards, start to open up a slightly different perspective, and knowing when that's right. It's different for different people, but that deep listening allows you to go, and now it's right.
Yeah.
So it's definitely, like you were saying there, is the consciously thinking to yourself, what am I trying to do with this question?
Yeah.
Like, as in, where is it I'm trying to move them from the stuckness, or I'm trying to get them to open up a bit. And also, don't have to be clever about it. You can sort of say, look, I'm sensing that you're coming up, you're stuck, or you're not willing to really explore this, and then like just calling out what you see. But I think this sort of being intentional as a coach and saying, right, I am trying to do what with my questioning, allows you then for the right questions to come about. And contracting, you say, this is what I'm trying to do. Is it working? Is it not? And then we can change it.
But also acknowledging if you haven't got a question.
Yeah.
So rather than feeling that I really ought to have a question, but I haven't got a question, my brain's gone, and I have a question, as you're saying, do you know, I haven't actually got a question that's coming to mind, and maybe turning it back. What questions are you asking yourself?
Yeah.
And then that allows a freedom and a movement. But so often I think I see people are stuck. What about, but I haven't got a question to bring, rather than going, okay, I'm going to acknowledge I'm a human and I don't have a question right now.
Yeah.
So that's just
not-
less fun. It's okay.
But also, it might be what do you not want me to ask you? Would you, like what would be the thing that you'd be like,
What are you noticing about where you are at the moment? Oh, I'm feeling a bit stuck. Okay, so what do you want to do about that? Where do you want to take that?
And there's one of my favorite ones is if you've got a client that talks a lot and you're holding that space of listening, and maybe they're talking and talking and talking, and we've all experienced that. Is often, if you're being really purist with coaching, it's just to let that person speak and listen to them and hold that space for them. But there can be a time, I had a client who would speak for 20 minutes, like without taking a breath. And I always struggled with, well, what do I now ask? Because they've gone all over the place. And I always think a good question in that scenario is, what's the most important thing about what you've just said?
Lovely. Yeah.
Because that again, it's adult. It puts the responsibility back to them. It's not clever, but it is quite powerful. Because it is that, I think there's a video we show, it's the kind of record scratch. I think that's quite a helpful kind of, oh, actually, why did I say all of that? What is most important?
And then that recontracting around, we've got 20 minutes left now. What do you want to do with that thing that's
Yeah.
most important to you?
Yeah.
That's sort of just helping or to
Yeah.
focus because it needs to have some sort of even if it is, I just want to explore that thing, and that's our role again, isn't it, in our questions? And if they go off on a tangent again, so we're going over here, is that related to this? Where? Yeah. Do we still want this? Do we want something different? So it's just that sort of just that light, gentle navigating, but quite powerful.
So I think it's really important we just remind ourselves the balance between agendaing towards the client's aspirations and also actually what we're being paid to do in the coaching environment, either as external coaches or as internal coaches or coaching leaders, whatever that may be. But we're there with an agenda, and that is to achieve some success measures, whatever those things may be. And I think it's okay to direct some questions back to what we're there to achieve. I think you have a shared responsibility to do that.
Yeah.
That was really important.
Yeah. So as a competency then, so asking powerful coaching questions, inextricably linked to listening. We've talked at length about that. If you get the listening right, the questions will come, takes the pressure off you as a coach, which is quite liberating. And then also that asking questions for forward momentum. So it's about making sure you're moving towards your goals, linking it back to the original objectives as well. And then also that, powerful means different things to different people. And we often, when we're teaching and tutoring on the program, people get sort of caught up in what powerful means. But it's often around just asking a question that's appropriate in the moment because the listening is there.
Yeah.